If you've been quietly wondering whether life might feel lighter somewhere outside the United States, you're not the only one. People aren't just packing up to find a cheaper beach to sit on. They're looking for more breathing room, more control over their time, and a place where a normal monthly income can still support a decent life. A lot of Black Americans are specifically looking for a place where they can just exist, without the heavy, constant weight of American social and racial tensions. Today, we're going to walk through 10 of the most realistic countries you can legally move to in 2026. Before we get into the list, I have a question for you to answer in the comments. If you could keep your current income but live absolutely anywhere in the world, which country would you seriously consider making your new home? Let me know down below. Number 10. Albania. Albania usually doesn't appear on anyone's first list of places to rebuild a life, and that may be exactly why it deserves attention. Tucked away in the Balkans, just across the sea from Italy and Greece, Albania has a very specific perk that makes it incredibly useful. It allows U.S. citizens to enter and stay for up to 365 days without needing to apply for a residency visa beforehand. If you need to leave the U.S. immediately to regroup, lower your expenses, and figure out your long-term plan, this is one of the easiest legal landing pads in the world. The appeal becomes much easier to understand once you look at rent. In the capital, Tirana, a modern one-bedroom apartment can still be found for around $400 to $600 a month, which leaves a lot more breathing room than most major American cities. A single person can usually manage a very comfortable daily life on a budget of $1,200 to $1,500. You probably won't deal with the same racial tension you left behind in the United States, but you may get stared at simply because many locals have had very little contact with Black foreigners. Most people report the staring is driven by pure curiosity, but being hyper-visible every time you walk to the grocery store can drain your energy. The bigger hurdle is usually the lack of infrastructure for families. Solo moms who've spent time here often report that finding reliable, English-speaking childcare or nannies is a massive struggle. That may be fine for a single remote worker or a couple using the country as a one-year base to save money, but it changes completely when you're trying to balance remote work with a busy toddler. Number 9. Antigua and Barbuda. Many Black Americans have deep ancestral ties to the Caribbean, and moving there feels less like expatriation and more like coming full circle. We're looking specifically at Antigua and Barbuda because they actually built a clear, functional nomad digital residence program. This visa allows remote workers to live on the island for 2 years, avoiding the legal gray areas that come with trying to string together tourist stamps. It does require a solid salary, asking applicants to prove an expected income of at least $50,000 a year. When you live in Antigua, you get a deeply relaxing pace of life and a society where Black people hold the political and economic power. For many people leaving the U.S., the mental relief of living in a Black-run nation easily outweighs any logistical headaches. The reality of island economics, however, is unforgiving. Your electricity bill will likely be much higher than it was in the States, and a basic trip to the grocery store for American-style products can cause serious sticker shock. Maintaining a U.S.-style standard of living usually requires a monthly budget of at least $3,000 to $4,500. There's also a psychological element that visitors rarely experience during a 2-week vacation. Antigua is a small island, and after 6 months, you might feel like you know everyone and driven down every road. This is an amazing landing spot for well-funded remote workers who desperately need to unplug from the American matrix, provided they don't require constant city entertainment or cheap overnight deliveries. Number 8. Ecuador. Ecuador looks simple on paper, as the currency is already the US dollar. The visa process is remarkably straightforward, and the Andes Mountains offer a climate where you rarely need heating or air conditioning. The government offers a pensioner visa for anyone with a guaranteed lifetime income, like Social Security or VA disability. They also offer a digital nomad and rentista visa for people working online or living off savings. The income requirement is tied to their unified basic wage, meaning for 2026 you generally need to prove an outside income of roughly $1,350 to $1,400 a month. In a historic highland city like Cuenca, an expat can easily rent a beautiful two-bedroom apartment for $500, and a total monthly budget of $1,500 provides a very soft landing. Once you become a resident, you can also buy into the public healthcare system for under $100 a month. The harder question right now is where in the country you should actually live. Coastal areas like Guayaquil and parts of the Esmeraldas region have seen severe spikes in cartel-related violence and strict travel advisories. Highland expat hubs remain relatively insulated from the worst of this, but you can no longer treat the entire country as a carefree playground. You also have to factor in how your body handles elevation, considering Cuenca sits at over 8,400 feet and can seriously aggravate existing heart or lung conditions. Ecuador has a significant Afro-descendant population, but American privilege will heavily shape your experience. Your U.S. passport and dollars will grant you excellent treatment in expat circles, even as you notice local black populations facing historical marginalization. Number 7. Ghana. Ghana is one of the few places where a black American can step off the plane and immediately stop being part of a visible racial minority. Since the Year of Return campaign, Accra has evolved into a major hub for the diaspora, offering a profound sense of connection that simply doesn't exist in Europe or Latin America. Most U.S. citizens start with a standard tourist visa, but Ghana does offer a right of abode designed specifically for people of African descent. That sounds like an open door until you actually start the paperwork. The right of abode can take years of navigating intense local bureaucracy, and you usually need to already be living there, investing, or married to a Ghanaian while you wait. Accra can also look inexpensive until you start searching for the kind of apartment most Americans expect. If you want to live in highly desired areas like cantonments or Osu, a modern one-bedroom apartment easily runs $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Landlords here routinely demand 1 to 2 years of rent paid entirely upfront in cash, which requires a massive amount of liquid savings just to get the keys. You also have to build the cost of infrastructure gaps into your daily life. Power outages, locally known as dumsor, are a normal part of the rhythm, meaning you'll likely need to buy a backup generator, pay for fuel, and install a water tank. Locals will warmly embrace you, but they'll absolutely view you as an American first, and often assume you have endless financial resources. Number 6. Costa Rica. Costa Rica sells the dream better than almost any country on this list, leaning heavily into its pura vida lifestyle, its lack of a standing army, and its focus on environmental wellness. For Black Americans, the Caribbean coast, particularly the town of Puerto Viejo, has become a major sanctuary. The Afro-Caribbean roots run deep here. English is widely spoken alongside Spanish, and the blending of local and expat communities creates a very holistic, welcoming environment. To stay legally, the government offers a digital nomad visa for remote workers earning at least $3,000 a month, or $4,000 for a family. If you don't work, the rentista visa requires proving an income of $2,500 a month, which most people satisfy by depositing $60,000 into a Costa Rican bank to cover a 2-year period. The problem is that the dream now comes with American-style prices in many of the places foreigners want most. Imported food, vehicles, and electricity are heavily taxed, meaning a modern house with air conditioning near the beach will likely push your total monthly budget to $3,000 or more. Bureaucracy here also moves at a glacial pace, and getting your actual residency card approved can drag on for well over a year. You also have to make peace with the jungle itself. The humidity and insect life are relentless, and if you leave a leather jacket in a dark closet during the rainy season, you'll find it covered in mold a week later. It serves as an incredible base for nature lovers who prioritize safety and wellness, provided they aren't expecting a discount lifestyle. Number 5. Thailand. Thailand can make a moderate American income feel much larger, but it also places an ocean and nearly an entire day of travel between you and everyone back home. The government recently introduced the Destination Thailand Visa, or DTV, which drastically simplified life for remote workers and freelancers. It requires showing you have 500,000 Thai baht in the bank, which hovers around $15,000. The visa is valid for 5 years, but it only allows you to stay for 180 days per entry, meaning you'll have to periodically leave the country or pay for extensions at the immigration office. If you're over 50, the traditional retirement visa remains a solid option, requiring about $24,000 in a Thai bank or a monthly income of roughly $2,000. Renting a gorgeous, modern condo with a rooftop pool in Bangkok or Chiang Mai rarely costs more than $600 to $800 a month. Healthcare is another reason many expats stay longer than they originally planned. A private hospital visit in Bangkok can feel closer to checking into a luxury hotel than navigating an American emergency room, yet the final bill may still be lower than an insurance deductible back home. Thai culture is famously polite and conflict-averse, meaning you're completely removed from the aggressive, systemic racial policing of the U.S. Locals may ask blunt questions about your skin or hair, but it almost always stems from genuine curiosity rather than malice. The real test is the distance. A flight back to Atlanta or New York can take over 20 hours and cost thousands of dollars, making it a logistical nightmare if you're a caregiver for an aging parent in the States. Number 4. Colombia. Colombia offers a climate that rarely requires a jacket, a highly developed medical system, and cities like Cali and Cartagena that serve as beating hearts of Afro-Colombian culture. For remote workers, the main attraction is a digital nomad visa that asks for roughly $950 to $1,050 a month in outside income, depending on the current exchange rate. That puts Colombia within reach of people who'd never qualify for residency in Europe or Central America, and the visa lets you stay for up to 2 years. In a prime neighborhood in Medellin, like Laureles or El Poblado, an expat earning in US dollars can still find a comfortable, modern apartment for under $1,000 without handing over half their paycheck. You can comfortably live on $1,500 to $2,000 a month, eating amazing food and taking Ubers everywhere. Most days in Medellin may feel completely normal, but that doesn't mean you can move through the nightlife scene carelessly. The problems that frequently trigger embassy warnings often begin with dating apps, strangers invited back to apartments, or someone displaying far more money than the situation calls for. There's been a very real rise in targeted drugging and robberies using scopolamine, primarily aimed at single male expats looking to party. If you lack basic urban street smarts or expect a highly predictable, sterile environment, the risks here will likely outweigh the rewards. But for remote workers who exercise caution and want a vibrant, culturally rich lifestyle with a highly active Black expat social scene, it remains a top-tier option. Number 3. Portugal. Over the last 5 years, Portugal became the ultimate blueprint for securing a second passport, boasting excellent healthcare and ranking as one of the safest countries on earth. Cities like Lisbon and the Algarve have massive, highly organized Black expat communities. The ultimate prize here is that Portugal offers a clear path to European Union citizenship after 5 years of legal residency, combined with a very basic language test. Most Americans enter through the D7 visa for passive income like pensions, or the D8 digital nomad visa for remote workers. The baseline income required for the D7 is tied to the Portuguese minimum wage, but you absolutely can't survive on that minimum amount today. Portugal is suffering through a severe housing crisis, and rents in Lisbon have skyrocketed, often costing $1,500 to $2,500 a month just for a basic one-bedroom apartment. To live comfortably, you need a budget closer to $3,000 a month. The immigration agency itself, AMA, is currently drowning in a massive backlog, meaning expats often wait over a year just to get a residency appointment or renew their expiring cards. Being American will shape how people treat you here, but it doesn't erase race entirely. Black Americans often arrive with economic advantages that many Black Portuguese residents, often with roots in Brazil, Angola, or Cape Verde, simply don't have. That economic divide becomes obvious very quickly once you integrate into the local culture. If your non-negotiable goal is an EU passport, and you have the financial padding to endure European housing costs and bureaucratic delays, the payoff is still incredibly high. Number 2. Panama. Panama operates on the US dollar, sits in the exact same time zone as the US East Coast, and features a capital city with infrastructure and high-speed internet that rival Miami. The real reason Panama sits this high on the list is its absolute certainty for retirees. The pensionado visa has no minimum age requirement. If you can prove a guaranteed lifetime income of at least $1,000 a month, you're granted permanent residency. That makes Panama especially practical for a veteran receiving permanent VA benefits or a retired teacher whose monthly check will continue regardless of where they live. This visa legally entitles you to massive discounts, including 25% off utility bills, 25% off restaurant meals, and steep cuts on medical bills and prescriptions. Thanks to the historical migration tied to the Panama Canal, there's a deep Afro-Antillean culture, meaning you'll find a strong black presence, great food, and natural hair care options in Panama City. The monthly number only tells part of the story, though. Panama City is essentially built in a jungle, and the heat and humidity are oppressive for most of the year. If you want to escape the sweat, you have to move to mountain towns like Boquete, which offer a beautiful spring climate but cater to a much older, quieter expat demographic. Driving in the capital is also famously chaotic, and outside the city, you may find yourself several hours away from the specialized medical care you might eventually need. For anyone with a fixed lifetime pension who wants a highly structured, permanent backup plan, it's incredibly difficult to find a better deal. Number 1. Mexico. Mexico takes the top spot because it's close enough to fly home for a family emergency, large enough to offer several very different lifestyles, and familiar enough that a new arrival doesn't have to rebuild every part of life at once. There's a massive, established community of Black Americans living everywhere from the trendy neighborhoods of Mexico City to the beaches of Oaxaca and the colonial streets of Mérida. Many Americans historically treated Mexico as a permanent visa-run hub, assuming they'd always be granted 180 days upon arrival. That era is effectively over, as immigration officers now routinely grant only 10 or 30 days to tourists. If you want to actually live in Mexico, you need to apply for temporary residency at a consulate back in the US. Because the income requirement is tied to the Mexican minimum wage, which has risen sharply, you now need to prove a monthly income of roughly $4,500 to $7,000, depending on which consulate handles your paperwork. Alternatively, you can show a liquid savings balance, usually ranging from $75,000 to over $100,000. Those numbers place legal residency out of reach for many, but if you do qualify, the process is incredibly smooth, and it converts to permanent residency after 4 years. Living costs vary wildly by region. A trendy apartment in Roma Norte will cost American prices, but if you settle in a smaller city like Querétaro, you can easily live beautifully on $1,500 a month total. The friction point right now is gentrification, as wealthy expats price locals out of their own neighborhoods. As an American arriving with a stronger currency, making an effort to learn Spanish and respecting the local economy goes a long way toward building genuine goodwill. It remains the most practical, well-rounded option for anyone who meets the financial threshold and wants a rich culture just a few hours away from home. And remember, leaving the US doesn't mean you have to do it completely alone. Many people in the community are adopting co-living strategies by renting large houses with friends or other expats to share costs, provide mutual support, and build immediate safety nets in a new country. Which country on this list would make the most realistic plan B for your life? And what would you need to know before making the move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this video helped clarify your options, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we can keep having these honest conversations. Make a plan, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.